I think we are ready to call this meeting to order of the MPO meeting, October 8th, 2021. We have introductions. I'll just say your name so we don't talk over each other. Lisa Ridge, Monroe County Highway Director. Sarah.
Sarah Ryder-Ban, Chair of the CAC.
Steve.
Steve Volan, City Council.
Pam.
Ellisville, my name is Pamela Samples. I'm Ellisville Town Council.
Kent.
Nathaniel, Bloomington Transit.
Jason.
Jason Bannock, Indiana University.
Margaret.
Margaret Clements, President of the Monroe County Plan Commission.
Kate. And she's probably muted and she's on the road.
Yeah.
But I will say Kate Wiltz is on in attendance in the meeting. Chris.
Holman, MNDOT, Seymour District.
And I think that's everybody. Am I missing anyone?
I'm here, Andrew Seabor, serving as proxy for Mayor Hamilton.
Okay. I need item 2 is approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
Have a motion? Do I have a second?
I'll second. That's from Kent.
Have a second from Kent. Do we have any comments or questions from the board?
One comment I noticed in the list of members present, it listed Don Griffin, and he was not present at the last meeting.
Okay, so we're on approval of the agenda, not the minutes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
Normally we have an option for comments from the public, and that's not on our agenda.
I don't remember seeing just a category for just public comments. So maybe I'm
Yeah, we can have public comments before any
Each item.
vote
yes.
and before each item. And then we also have section 9 of the agenda has public comments on matters not appearing on the
Okay.
agenda. In other
Okay.
words, non-voting items. So there are ample opportunities for public comment.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. Do we have any public comment on this action item? Can you do the roll call, Ryan?
Sure. Ridge,
Yes.
Ryder-Ban,
Yes.
Samples,
Yes.
Wallman,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Clements,
Yes.
Bowen,
Yes.
Wiltz, Wiltz. I will skip and come back. Seabor,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
and Wiltz again?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Then I say yes.
Thank you. That is 10-0.
All right, motion passes. Item 3, approval of the minutes of September 10th, 2021.
Andrew, you had something, didn't you?
I guess I'll make a request to amend the list of members present. There may have been others, but I know Don Griffin is listed and he was not present at the last meeting.
That's my fault.
Well, in that case, I'll move for approval of the minutes with that exception.
I second.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Any comments from the board? And do we have any public comment? Seeing none, Ryan, would you want to do the roll call?
Sure. Ryder Band,
Yes,
Samples,
I abstain. I wasn't here.
Wallman,
I missed the meeting last month. I abstained.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Clements,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Wiltz,
Yes.
Seaboard,
Yes,
Bannock,
Yes.
Ridge.
Yes.
That is 802.
Thank you, Ryan. Communications from the chair. I don't have anything to report at this time. Reports from officers and or committees, Citizens Advisory Committee.
yes. The CAC met and recommended once again that the policy committee approve the addition to, that was eliminated in our last meeting, the addition, to the 2022-24 tip of the additional lane on 46. And that was it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Technical Advisory Committee.
I can make that report since our chair is retired. The Technical Advisory Committee met last month and they recommended approval, policy committee approval of the added travel lane on State Road 4546 at Pay Dallas Drive. This is the same action that they had recommended the prior month. So it's 2 consecutive months they've recommended action on this. And that's all they had.
All right, thanks, Patrick.
Uh-huh.
Reports from the MPO staff, fiscal year 2022 to 2026 Transportation Improvement Program tip approval.
Okay. The tip you have in your packet is the exact copy of what we ended up sending to the Indiana Department of Transportation. And they sent along to Federal Highway Administration, Federal Transit Administration. There were a few additional scrivener errors here, maybe a half a dozen or so. The Department of Transportation did send it on Federal Highway Administration. Federal Highway Administration approved of the document. Federal Transit Administration, however, is yet to approve of the document simply because they're in a backlog on projects. We anticipate their approval next week. And then after that approval from Federal Transit Administration, MNDOT will prepare a letter to the governor's office for approval. And governor's office approval will typically take anywhere from 7 to 14 days. Once that is signed, then our transportation improvement program will become official by being incorporated with reference into the statewide transportation improvement program. So bottom line is that we anticipate full formal approval by the end of October. I don't see any issues with that. And once we receive the issuance of the formal approval, we will recontact all of the local public agencies, Rural Transit, Bloomington Transit, Monroe County and City of Bloomington, and work with them to make sure that we've got current applications for all of the projects. Because some of the projects have changed. Some projects have increased, some projects have decreased. We also have additional money, which will need to be allocated in Monroe County's case for a transportation alternatives project. So we'll do the small minor accounting work in November also. But anyway, everybody will have a formal notice to proceed on all of their projects effective with approval of the tip. That's all I've got.
All right, thanks, Patrick. And on your
Yeah.
notifications, make sure you include Town of Ellettsville. I don't think I heard.
Oh,
you.
yeah, I would. Yes, I will, even though they don't have any applications. And I encouraged them 3 times to apply. And we didn't have an application, darn it. But yes, I will. I will
Okay.
note it.
14th Street Extension.
14th Street extension, staff knows nothing about the 14th Street extension. However, we did reach out to a representative from Indiana University Architect's Office. We were advised that the university looked at a potential extension of 14th Street 3 years ago, 2018. They started in 2017, finished in 2018. Looked at a potential extension, and there's no further action on that, simply because there is no purpose and need right now at the current time, and there are no resources available for such a project at all. So in essence, it's there on paper, nothing more.
Pat, may I ask, is that, I believe it's listed in our long-range transportation plan as an Indiana University project?
It's not in the MPO's long-range transportation plan. It may be in the city of Bloomington's transportation plan.
Would it be eligible for any federal funding?
I don't know. Depends on if they wanted to pursue that or not.
Okay, well, just one
and-
last question then. Who did you talk to at the architect's office?
The vice chair of the Citizens Advisory Committee.
Oh, okay,
Does that help?
sure. Thank you.
He's knowledgeable and he has a lot of gray hair. So yeah. Okay.
Any other questions for Patrick on this item? Seeing none. And IU Health Hospital opening November 2021.
Yeah, I reached out to IU Health, to the representative that we worked with a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. In fact, 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. On the opening, nothing has changed. I don't have a formal response from that individual at this point in time. The primary entrance, the primary and only entrance to the hospital will be off of the 45-46 bypass. Any other entrance would be strictly service entrance for trucks and vehicles and employees, and that's it. I hope that helps. And opening is still on schedule for November. We don't have an exact date. That's something we're not privy to. That depends on when the hospital feels like they want to begin their operation, their full operation. So that's all I know at this point in time.
Okay, Steve has a question.
Yeah, I mean, will there be, if the only entrance is the bypass, there's a light being put in there, right?
The light is already there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, the light is there. The acceleration, deceleration lanes are in. All the markings, all the pavement markings are in. The entryway into the facility itself, the curb cut is extremely wide, like 4 lanes wide type of thing.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it's all in place. And they were planting plants around the IU Health sign welcome this week.
As they do.
So, yeah, as they
Well,
do.
I'd heard that the date for the big move was December 5th, but you know, it's just something I heard. So I don't know. Sometime I'm sure between November and December 5th, we'll be seeing the move.
Well, yeah, I mean, the knowledge that I have is that it's a stage move, if you will. Some assets will be up and running at the facility while the other facility continues to run in parallel. They'll operate in parallel until they feel like they've got 100%, and then one facility will shut down and the other facility will be recognized as 100%. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a lot of interest in this because I live just a little east of Pete Ellis Drive off of 10th Street. I'm surprised they don't consider that to be an entrance to the hospital, because if I ever had to go there, that's definitely the way I'd go.
Well, it's number one, congested. Number two, it's a service
So will the
entrance.
bypass.
The bypass has a level of service C. You can get in, and I mean, this is what they've told us.
It's not up to you. I get it, Pat.
Yes. I'm just the messenger here. Yes. This is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. They made their decision on how they wish to operate, and that's it.
Yep.
Any other questions, comments on this topic?
Well, I have a few, and number one, I hear what you're saying, but I find it a little bit unbelievable to understand that the only entrance to the hospital is going to be off of the bypass, and that another traffic light is going to go into stopping traffic on the bypass, with the traffic already being choked at various times during the day and with events in Bloomington. So I think that some of the questions that we've been seeing in the emails from Colonel Scott Ferris have demonstrated a need for an updated a comprehensive traffic plan, and especially with respect to the IU Health buildings. And although it was kindly noted in that this is IU Health's campus, it also is our community, and we are stewards of our community and our roads. And if it's not acceptable, I would presume this is where we fix it, where we fix the problems associated with anticipated traffic choke points. And this has been a concern of mine, as you all know, for about 4 years. There are 5 trains that go across the Highway 46 5 times a day. There's game day traffic. And we've had a briefing from IU Health, and I know we're going to receive another one today. But to me, there are obvious problems in the analysis that has been done, that it doesn't include up to the minute building anticipated buildings like at the Kmart site, the Pete Ellis site, et cetera. And I have serious concerns about the safety of our community, especially as they approach a hospital. So I want to put that on the record. I am concerned about a traffic study that is only focusing on the State Road 4546 bypass and the 14th Street intersection, and does not include Pete Ellis Drive, State Road 45 and the 10th Street intersection. It's clear that if they are not stated right now, or if it is not transparent at the moment, that there are plans that must include these points. And I'm concerned about the transparency, once again, of the planning process, the currency of the transportation plan and the analysis, and the robustness of our solutions for anticipated problems around a major safety provider, which is the hospital and emergency vehicles in our community.
Thank you, Margaret. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak on this topic? Steve?
Yeah, I take interest in Ms. Clement's concerns. I guess I would ask, to whom specifically she is appealing. I mean, do we have, as an MPO, a mechanism for embodying her objections? Like, how is that managed?
From the staff standpoint, what we could do is we could ask representatives from the Department of Transportation to come in, because this involves 2 MNDOT facilities. And we could also ask for representatives from IU Health. I mean, the MPO itself, we have no involvement in this. This is the decision by a corporate entity and also by the Department of Transportation.
But I mean, these are relevant here because the facilities transcend the city or the county. They're state or federal funded roads. Is that right?
Yeah, the intersection itself and the improvements made to the 4546 bypass intersection with the new Hospital Drive, Discovery Parkway Drive, that was all 100% paid for by IU Health. That wasn't a federal aid project whatsoever.
And just to, again, for my edification, is it because IU Health is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, or because it's partially owned by the state that this is an issue?
No, it's because any entity making a driveway cut onto a state facility must pay for it themselves.
Got it. Okay.
That's the law. Yeah,
Well, I would simply
state-
say, just in closing, that Ms. Clements' concerns need, I think, to be reduced to some kind of resolution if the MPO is going to take any action beyond hearing from the entities that you mentioned. So I think there may be some merit to those concerns. I just don't understand the MPO well enough yet to know how we go about embodying them. That's all. Thanks.
Well, I mean, as an alternative, what we could do is we could request IU Health to come in and give another presentation. We could also ask for their consulting engineering staff to give a presentation if there's concern about whether the traffic engineering is correctly applied or not, or the assumptions are correct. I mean, those are our options right now.
I would direct a question to Ms. Clements. Ms. Clements, do you think that there should be a broader traffic study, or that whatever traffic study is currently engaged should be set aside and a larger one commissioned? I'm trying to understand where you think that should go.
Yes, I think that there should be an area-wide combined traffic study. I think Colonel Scott Ferris has indicated that through his analyses and his experience, which are substantial, that this would be very helpful to our community and actually promote safety, which is our primary concern. And that there should be a centralized government body to deconflict area-wide traffic and safety infrastructure requirements, that a POC be appointed to handle the complexity of the traffic issues surrounding IU Health.
What's a POC?
A point of contact, an official point of contact that MNDOT and the MPO and the other agencies could communicate with, so that this complex project could be coordinated more satisfactorily to the safety of the community.
I hate to keep drilling down here. I just have to ask one more question. A traffic study might fall into the city of Bloomington's purview, but we wouldn't have the authority to make changes in such a study on MNDOT managed roads, which is pretty much the extent of the concerns that you have is, the bypass from the hospital all the way to 45 and Pete Ellis Drive.
I was going to say IU Health already has a traffic study. Traffic study was prepared for the facility itself and for the construction of the facility and for the operation of the facility. Took into account existing conditions at the time of the study, and also takes into account forecasting, turning movements, signalization, trains, all the movements that you would have. I mean, that's mandatory that be done. And so that study already exists, that's out there. It's a matter of whether
something's not right. Something's just not right. We can see it with our own eyes. We can smell it with our own nose. Our brake pedal on our cars speaks to it.
I mean, I don't know what the right answer is here. All I can tell you is that there is a study that's been done, and that study was commissioned by IU Health, and it was reviewed and approved by the Indiana Department of Transportation because it affects their facilities.
Patrick, I've received a few emails on this topic also. And the only thing that I might ask is one area that I see that has been a big concern is the different new projects that the city of Bloomington has approved in the area, increasing the traffic movements. Was that taken into consideration at the time when they did that traffic study?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, are you speaking
I know
specifically?
we anticipate future development in all areas, and
Yeah.
usually a traffic study will look at future analysis of what they predict might happen in an area. And I didn't know if that's a part of this study also.
I mean, yeah, what I'm drilling down here, what areas specifically?
And I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I don't know if Chris would like to speak to the questions or concerns on how the traffic studies work on projects with MNDOT.
When we propose a project, we have to do some traffic forecasting for any state project we do, and we're going to take actual traffic counts. We also do a traffic forecast, forecast out for the design year, usually 20 years.
Yep.
And so that gets taken account. Our central office folks in Indianapolis help provide those forecasts to us, so that we have some consistency in how that's done.
And all of those plans are stamped by professional engineers and sometimes professional traffic and operations engineers.
Yep, correct.
I know we had Sarah's hand up first and then Penny.
Yeah, I think that I hear Margaret's concerns and I understand, what we've been talking about along 10th for a long time now. Unfortunately, MNDOT does not look necessarily at what our plan commissions approve, and they can't anticipate where the city or the county are going to approve new development and allowing large scale development that may then clog the roadways. So there's a disconnect between MNDOT and their road studies and what our local public authorities allow in terms of development. And, it would be lovely for everybody to be able to coordinate, but it doesn't happen. And we can't, obviously, we're not throwing the bathwater out with the baby here, I hope. And maybe the baby should go first, I don't know. But the problem is that MNDOT also is in development, like several years in advance, and they don't take into consideration then some development that happens now, because they're already 4 years developing the projects out there. So while Margaret's concerns are very legitimate, there's no way to really coordinate these things unless everybody sits down, both land and roadway engineers all sit down together, and that doesn't happen very often. So it's lovely, but I don't see that as being feasible. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah.
One other item I might note too is if there is a desire for current information on the project or future information on the project itself, there's the MNDOT customer service website, MNDOT for you, INDOT, number 4, you. Just Google that. They have a toll-free number. They answer the questions as comprehensively as possible. They will take all of your questions that you have at any time. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to communicate directly with MNDOT, because that's what they're there for, is to answer your questions that you have. And if you have one question, if you have a series of questions, if you have a whole series of concerns, the MNDOT for You customer service website will help you with that.
Thank you, Patrick. Penny?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Margaret for what she raised, because I too feel that there needs to be more than one entry into the new hospital. I've been on the bypass when there have been wrecks. It's backed up. How is an ambulance supposed to get there when those kinds of things happen? And as some of the others have alluded to, there are changes that are going to be taking place. We know that on 45, they're going to be doing other construction, we hope. And so that's going to change things on all of our patterns around that area too, and push even more traffic onto the bypass. So I am concerned that there's only one entrance into the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, and then Margaret.
Thanks, Lisa. I have to do *6, and for some reason, then it like takes forever to unmute. So I appreciate everyone's patience. I guess I have so many questions. I'm not claiming to be an expert on traffic planning, but it seems inefficient for each individual person who wants to know about these projects to call the state customer service line. And I'm wondering, does the MPO, I know that we have a budget for community engagement, I believe it was called, and I'm wondering if some of that could be used to be more proactive about gathering the information on these projects, things like, you know, and resources that are relevant, and then maybe just sharing those with the public. Is that something that's possible?
I mean, the MPO has the capability of gathering the information. The biggest problem is what I call the loss in translation, because we can, you know, you can direct a question to us, and then we can direct a question to NDOT, and then NDOT can direct an answer to us, and we can direct the answer to you. But there's something that's lost in translation and something lost in immediacy. Whereas if each individual were to contact NDOT directly, they can get an answer without the so-called middleman, and I'm the middleman, and Ryan's the middleman. I mean, you get a much more immediate response is what I'm saying, a much more comprehensive response.
I think I understand what you're saying. It seems though that there's a lot of interest in this from the public, and especially folks who live on the east side and are directly impacted. And I think just from a public relations standpoint, and I know that's not necessarily our business, but it's certainly appropriate that we provide updates and then direct people with more specific information needs, maybe to the customer service hotline. And it might be something where if we provided updates that included information from not just the state, but the other organizations, jurisdictions that are involved, that I think that would be appreciated, and it would be helpful, not just to the public, but just to our own understanding of kind of the complexities involved in this project.
Yeah, I mean, from a project management standpoint, project changes every week. I mean, there are discrete steps that they have to meet for their schedule. And the question here that I would have is, what do you want to know and when do you want to know it? And how much detail do you want? You know, I mean, what we're talking about here is a pretty deep set of questions that we as the staff have no knowledge of, that NDOT does. And that's why we encourage direct contact with NDOT, because they are, you know, it's their facilities.
So let me ask this, Patrick, as being MPO and such. So I know since this has come out about, I've kind of, anything that I get from NDOT now that's maybe a public hearing notice or such, I'm going to post it to the county website. That way, anybody that has any interest in a certain project, they can see kind of where that's at.
Sure.
Is that something that that you guys could take on to, you know?
Yeah.
Not everybody gets public hearing notices, and that way it kind of, people have a one place they could go to the city, they could go to the MPO, they could go to the county website to at least try to direct them in a certain direction of, this is where this project's at, it's coming up with a public hearing on this, and here's the contact information or meeting date.
What we could do is we could create a separate web page just for early coordination. I mean, the public notices that go out are published as legal notices, and they have an extremely wide distribution to the media, to the press, and to the media, public media, electronic media. I mean, what we could do is we can start posting those too, if there's an interest and desire in doing that, because that way, you know, at least they know that it's there. On early coordination letters, I know that the distributions that go out are quite extensive from the consulting firms. For public hearings, there's usually an opportunity for a public hearing. It may not necessarily be a formal hearing unless somebody requests it. But in answer to your question, yeah, we could create a whole page, web page, and start posting those if there's an interest in doing that.
Okay, and then I do want to stress to anybody too that's in the public and that wants to stay in contact with MNDOT. One thing that I find is signing up at their website for the email notifications. They send out every day. I think I get something from MNDOT, whether it's not,
Yes.
whether it's a modification, a contract revision, it's an RFP going out. And anyone can sign up for that service, and it keeps you updated of what's going on with projects. So I mean, I would probably encourage, you know, for public involvement in that area too. But I know Margaret and then Steve has their hands up.
Well, yes, I appreciate all the information about staying in touch with MNDOT and the request that we take it, the citizens take into their own hands, you know, communicating with MNDOT about this project. And in fact, it's over this project that Colonel Scott Ferris became involved, and he has been communicating with MNDOT about this project, and his level of knowledge about it is quite high. And in fact, I mean, we're kind of tossing a hot potato around here about what we've been discussing for 4 years. I mean, this, I don't remember the group, but I believe Penny Githens was on the group about emergency access to the hospital from 4 years ago. So they wrote letters to MNDOT, and here we are still talking about the process 4 years later about how the MPO can be involved in this process around the hospital, about which many major constituencies in our community have concerns. And I think Mr. Rowland was there when we had the briefing from IU Health. Penny Githens was part of a citizens action group that was asking about it. I don't know what I'm listening to here. You know, I just don't know what I'm listening to here. But it seems clear to me that we do need somebody who is able to coordinate this project and who is able to stay in touch with MNDOT, who is able to bring different community resources to bear exactly on this project. So I don't know how we move it along given what I'm hearing today, but I guess, you know, the answer is to call MNDOT and give up on the idea of giving engineers and a technical advisory.
Could we hear from
committee
Mr.
an
Wallman
opportunity
since
to
he's here
sit
from
down
MNDOT?
and talk about things and to get this straight? You know, is that right? Do we have to give up on that?
Madam Chair, can we hear from the representative from MNDOT since there is one on the MPO and he's here on this call?
Thanks, Steve. MNDOT, you know, MNDOT is a big organization, and to Pat's point, even contacting one person from MNDOT is not going to get all the answers that you need, right? I can't answer all your specific traffic questions, right? So I do want to make a plug again for the MNDOT for you, the call-in number, because that connects you directly with the applicable expert in that area that you're looking for. And it's a much better way to get your questions answered and get them answered correctly. So please feel free to use that as much as you can. Regarding the public involvement process, you know, we do send those out when we have opportunity for public involvement. We send those out as a press release, and it hits all of our major social media. So if you haven't signed up for us on social media like Twitter, Facebook, and such, please do that. And the email listservs are also a good opportunity to stay in contact with us.
So Chris, I think a lot of the question and concern too that I think I'm hearing is sometimes people feel like they're not being heard, and maybe that I'm not an engineer, but that sometimes what can come out into a report isn't actually the case out there, and people that are driving this area and see the situation as it exists now only sees it getting worse. How does MNDOT address that moving forward? Do they come back and do a new study and realize things need changed, or it has worsened the condition? How does an MPO get to be really heard and listened to? I think is what I feel that I think that it's a concern for people moving forward, even with future projects that come forward.
Yeah, I mean, the whole purpose of the MPO is for us to collaborate, right? It's getting all these different groups together where we would all be going our separate directions, and we're making a plan, right? So, but sometimes things come up, like, you know, it was brought up. We've got a 5-year plan that we're developing for capital programs, and all of a sudden you get a development that gets put in. Okay, so there's some things we can plan for, but then sometimes those plans change. You know, being involved in the public involvement is critical, I think, for our groups. We have a project out there that gets that level of input and has that level of impacts. You know, come to those public meetings. A lot of times we don't get a whole lot of people that come up to their public meetings. Come at, you know,
Rarely.
make a comment.
Rarely.
Those comments do get addressed. I know people don't.
Yes.
You know, the comment might not, you know, you might not like the project and want it to be canceled. It might not cancel the project, but there's information that the citizenry have that can make that project a lot better. So always send in your comments.
But if plans can change, why aren't they changing the plans on updating what should be happening on State Route 45 east of the bypass? There's been a lot of complaints about that.
So we are in development in creating an additional turn lane there from the bypass to Pete Ellis. And that was, I think, was on the amendment that just was proposed last month, right?
But this is all happening very piecemeal, and people don't want it happening piecemeal. We don't want things 3 different projects in that area because it's going to disrupt things 3 different times.
I don't either, but the fact remains that there are, we do have fiscal constraints. We have funding constraints. We can't fund everything all at once all the time. And so that's something, a balancing act we're always working with, because you know, Bloomington is very important, but it's one piece of the state, and we've got to take care of our assets all around the state. And so,
Madam Chair, I'd like to be recognized. I don't know what order is here, but I had my hand up and I wanted to ask Mr. Wellman some questions.
Sure, Steve.
Thank you. Mr. Wellman, I think what you're hearing here is sort of an expression of frustration at the MNDOT process in general. You know, the hospital basically only had to appeal to MNDOT to get its access to its new location. And what you're hearing is a concern that there is far less connectivity to the new hospital than there was to the old one. There's literally only one entrance and exit to the hospital for the public, which is already a concern on, say, game days or other times of heavy traffic. And this is now our major healthcare outlet. And, you know, the MNDOT did not have an obligation to ensure that the hospital had at least a second means of access for the public to get to it. I think that I and several other members of the MPO here are the duly elected representatives of the entities that you say, you know, need to listen to MNDOT more. But I'm hearing an echo, by the way. I'm not sure who's got their, can we have people muted? I don't know what's going on. But I think what you're hearing is, like, we are there is a power I think the MPO has, and that is to not approve tips that would enable federal funding to flow unless MNDOT is, more serious about taking local concerns into account. I know that you have other, that you're the state and you manage many other locations, but that doesn't really change our local concern and the relative, what's the word I'm looking for? The relative deafness of MNDOT to local concerns. Now, we have a lot of work to do, I think. Ms. Clement's concerns require some kind of executive action on our part if we want to commission a new traffic study, for example. But I can tell you as a representative of the city of Bloomington, that when the hospital opens and some kind of traffic problems occur because of this relative blindness, the city of Bloomington is going to be the one that people blame first because we're closer to the people involved, to the people driving on the bypass, perceiving the problem. I think the county may also receive a little blowback too, but I thought that was why this body existed. If I'm wrong, I'd like to be corrected by somebody. But what do you say to these concerns? Mr. Wallman?
Specific concern?
Pardon me?
Your specific concern, please?
Our specific concern is that MNDOT reports, but does not necessarily collaborate with the local body in question.
I think I wouldn't say that's necessarily the case, right? Because in our development of the project, they add travel lanes from 45, 46 from the bypass to Pete Ellis. We've been working with the city of Bloomington. We've been working with locals. We've been incorporating elements, multimodal elements in our design. So I wouldn't say that we've turned a blind eye or been deaf to concerns. I think we do listen and we do take those into account. So I'm not seeing where that's coming from. I do realize that there's frustration. There's a lot of construction work out there statewide. But
no, that's understandable. Just in general, I mean, I think if you're looking for a characterization of the concerns of this body, as started by Ms. Clements and echoed by others, it's that perception that MNDOT being a state agency, much like IU being a state agency, tend to be. I don't want to over characterize this or be. I want to use the word dismissive, a little bit dismissive of local concerns, but we also, I admit that we have we have an obligation to focus our concerns more specifically. We can't just say, well, our traffic study isn't good enough. We have to coordinate a bigger traffic study if we think it's what we need to do. But I'm just sort of expressing what I'm hearing, and certainly what I feel, along with several others, is a relative lack of what's the word? I mean, I know you collaborate with us, but you also have final say over many of these. Not you per se, but MNDOT has final say over many of these projects that we're concerned about that affect traffic beyond those roads. Thank you.
Can I jump in here? I live on the east side. I could walk from here to the Pete Ellis State Road 45 intersection, and that intersection is a mess. It always has been, and it's going to get a lot worse when you get more traffic. We keep talking about, IU Health says there's one entrance. Well, there are two. There already are two. You can enter from the bypass, or you can enter from Pete Ellis. And you can do it right now. So it will be a heavily traveled corridor. And then the other intersection is the one at the State Road 45, 46 bypass, where it intersects with East 10th Street, or State Road 45. And if you're coming from the north, there are 2 lanes to turn left. As soon as you turn the corner, there's 1 lane. So it's designed to create conflict. And to me, those are it's State Road 45, 46, State Road 45 East. That's within the realm of MNDOT. And so I think somebody's got to do something about fixing that, because it's just going to get worse. And I do think that should be something that the MPO Policy Committee has something to say about. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. Kate, do you have your hand up again, or was that from before?
No, this is again, and I don't want to belabor too many things, but what I'm hearing, and I think Mr. Wallman even said, this is a collaborative body, and you know, the idea that we have representatives from the entities that we're all referring to when we say we need more information, to me, begs the question of, okay, how can we do what we're doing a little bit better as a committee? And perhaps maybe we should spend a little time talking about our process and scheduling out a way that forces our collaboration, since we don't seem to have it quite down by, you know, just letting it happen organically. I would be interested in seeing a section of our agenda, perhaps, if possible, targeting hearing from maybe each meeting one of these different entities as an update, or when we talk about the TIP amendments, those projects, you know, the folks on this committee who are more knowledgeable about the different areas can jump in and contribute. Or I mean, and I don't want to put people on the spot either. Maybe we plan it, like I said, maybe it's, you know, in October, and every 3 months we hear from IU, and every, you know, 3 months we hear from the city, and then we take turns and we kind of bring that, you know, those perspectives more formally to the meetings as something that would maybe make us more informed and more able to serve our community. That's just one idea. I still feel pretty certain because we have a public engagement budget, which I do realize we've done public engagement, and the surveys that you guys have done have been helpful. I just feel like it's something that's very important. Anyway, I'm gonna stop.
Thank you, Kate. Any other questions or comments on the IU Health opening? Steve?
Yeah, I wonder if maybe we can't devote a portion of a coming meeting to, I wonder if every member of the MPO fully understands the privileges and responsibilities of the MPO. I think I just wrote in the chat that I don't know that there is some other body to look to coordinate appeals to MNDOT. That's one reason that this body exists. At least that's my understanding of it. But perhaps we can have a retreat or devote some portion of future meetings to discussing or to understanding fully the specific role we're supposed to play, the specific rights or privileges that we have as a body, what actions, concrete actions we can and can't take. Because it seems clear to me that there's not a universal understanding of the MPO's of the MPO Policy Committee, which I assume that this meeting is has. So I just wanted to express that as the chair. That's something you can coordinate, but I don't know if anybody else agrees with this, but that's something I'd be interested in.
I agree. And I also don't want us to forget that besides the MPO Policy Committee, we do have a Citizens Advisory Committee that hears these same projects. And then we also have a Technical Advisory Committee that does bring in more experts to look over these projects and to make recommendations and to either support the projects or not support the project. So I feel like we also do have 3 different levels that are involved into the process.
But I mean, there's still somebody who votes and the decision is made official by a vote, and that is this body that we're attending right now, right? Okay.
Yep.
Those other committees advise us, but we're the ones who ought to be making official advocacy for a given change.
Okay.
Okay,
So
thank you.
to answer Steve's question, I'd say that obviously the MPO 101 that Pat has offered in the past may need a 201 or 401 level. And because Pat's got a tremendous amount of knowledge and has lots and lots of years in MPO work and at the state level. So Pat, I wonder how you feel about doing a second level if people have actually listened to your first level MPO in answer to Steve's questions.
I mean, in answer to your question, the MPO 101, I had an individual meeting with a representative from the TAC this morning at 10 o'clock. And then I had individual meeting with 2 other representatives of the Technical Advisory Committee last month. So we're conducting, Ryan and I offer individual briefings if people want individual briefings. We're available to do that. The hardest part here is number one, well, there's so much to this. The bylaws specify the duties and responsibilities of the policy committee itself. We have a public participation plan, which is out there, which we will bring to you in an updated form with the electronic policy soon. And then we also have what I would call a communication problem, because if there are complaints about or concerns about an MNDOT project, if you send those to us, we send those to MNDOT because we're not the managers of projects. So, and sometimes the answers that are gotten back, that are received by the individuals or the groups, may not be the answers they want, but that's fine. Keep asking, keep knocking at the door, because MNDOT is there and they're there to help you. And you can get specific technical responses from them up to the week, not up to the day, but up to the week on all of these projects, because all of these projects undergo what I would call weekly updates or weekly briefings. The project managers I know do that, and they meet with the staff and all of that. Now, as far as IU Health goes, I don't have contacts with IU Health. If someone else has contacts with IU Health, please. It's not, IU Health isn't in our wheelhouse, is what I want to say. And they're a multi-billion-dollar corporation. I don't try and tell them what to do. But yeah, if there are concerns that are out there, please convey those to IU Health directly, or convey them to us, and we will convey those to IU Health, just like we do with MNDOT. And yes, I could do an MPO 201, 301, 401 if so desired, but the first step is MPO 101 of understanding what we do, why we do it, the processes, the functions, and the fact that we're under contract with the Department of Transportation. That contract is specified in our work program every year, and a lot of that is formulaic in that they tell us what we're going to do, and we say, yes, 3 bags full. But there is an opportunity for the committee, or this committee, or any other committees, to tell us that we should be doing something different that we're not doing, or do something in addition to what we are already doing. If we were to coordinate, be a focal point or coordination for all of the projects, that may be a little overwhelming. And again, we will be relying on the MNDOT for You website and the customer service staff. And again, I'll warn you, you could lose something in translation. If you give us a question, we give it to MNDOT, MNDOT gives it back to us, and we give it back to you. So,
Pat, could I jump in here?
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but you're talking about MPO 101. Just in a
Yes.
nutshell, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, the city of Bloomington can do pretty much whatever they want with their money, and the county can do whatever they want, and the MNDOT can do whatever it wants. But if they want to use federal money for it, then we have to include it. The policy committee has to include it in our plan.
Yes.
And that's our leverage, and that's pretty much all we've got, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments, questions, suggestions? Pat?
I will recontact IU Health.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Moving to old business. Bloomington, Monroe County MPO fiscal years 2020 to 2024 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment, DES number 1800086, added travel lane on State Road 45 from 4546 bypass to Pete Ellis Drive.
Ryan, are you out there?
Yep, he's here.
Yes.
Okay,
Would you like me to scroll to that?
thank you. Your turn.
Oh,
Barb.
there we go. We'll go back up to the beginning here. Oops, that was the beginning. All right, as presented last month, is this added travel lane on State Route 45 from the Bloomington bypass to the intersection of Pete Ellis Drive, DES number 1800086. It is coming back to the policy committee as requested by you last month, and it has been, as Pat and Sarah have mentioned already, we have brought this back through the technical advisory committee and the citizens advisory committee with their second recommendation, or I should say re-recommending this project. But to go over it once again, so we are all on the same page, there is surface transportation block grant funding in fiscal year 2023 for right-of-way in the amount of $250,000, and surface transportation block grant funding in the construction phase in 2026 for the amount of $2,650,000. And there has been no updates to this application since the last time you have seen it. We are just bringing it to you all again with the added documents below that include all the early coordination letters. So hopefully these letters have provided you with the information that you all need to make or to help make your decision. And Pat, if you would like to add anything onto this, or Chris, if you'd like to add anything onto this, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I mean, the only thing I would add is that we included in here the early coordination letter, which was December 15th, 2020. We included that in there so because that details the engineering design concepts for the entire project itself and the anticipated impacts of the projects in terms of right-of-way taking, land use in the vicinity of the area, and any social, economic, and environmental needs. And we received this, like I said, in December of 2020, which shows that MNDOT was working on the project last year And this is being done with, well, this phase is being done with 100% state funds. And then the proposed amendment that is being requested here would be done with federal assistance. And the reason for the federal assistance now is that the money is available. The money was not available. This was a bench project. Bench meaning it was sitting on the bench because there are several thousand other statewide transportation needs that were prioritized ahead of this project. So that's all I wanted to know.
I'll just add, just to echo Pat's comments there, this did become an active project recently, and we're in the middle of the environmental phase of the project. We anticipate to have opportunity for public involvement here early part of next year. Just to give you a project update.
It's muted, sorry. I think the first thing we would have to have is a motion and then open it up for comment from the board and then the public.
I move approval of the additional lane on 45, it's 46, trying to find it. The additional lane, travel lane on State Route 45 from the bypass to Pete Ellis Drive.
Have a motion?
I'll second that.
And we have a second. Any questions or comments from the board?
I do have a question. I'm concerned about with additional right-of-way. How do we know where that's going to occur? I mean, that's a fairly narrow corridor there. You've got IU on, Pat's got his hand up. You got IU on one side, you got apartments and Dolly Garden Farm, and there's just not a whole lot of room there. So yeah, Pat, can you enlighten us?
There it is. Yeah, the early coordination. Yeah, here's the early coordination letter, and that shows you what the right-of-way limits, the approximate right-of-way limits would be. As I noted in the prior meeting, the taking, there is minor taking from the Daisy Garden Farms property, but it's only for a turning radii and it's less than an acre. Not even that. I mean, it's a small fraction. And the letter itself, which is in the packet, deals exactly with how much it would take. It's requiring approximately 1.75 acres of new right-of-way from two parcels along the north side of State Road 45 and approximately 0.03 acres of temporary right-of-way. And then it also talks about the maintenance of traffic on State Road 45, an alternative maintenance of traffic, implementing a detour route, and then maintenance traffic will be coordinated with State Road 45 and Pete Ellis Discovery Parkway intersection improvement project, which is a separate project from this project. So yeah, on the second page of the early coordination letter, at the very first paragraph is where it details all of that out.
Thank you, Pat. And I've seen that diagram
Right there.
but when you look at the red lines there, they get really close to a lot of IU buildings, like the business incubator and the UITS building and the warehouse. Are they aware of this?
Yes.
Plus, there's a big elevation change there.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, we're aware. We're aware.
And a big utility relocation.
Oh yeah, yeah, and a lot of that utility work was just done recently.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And I do want to say that Chris had written in the chat, if somebody had not seen it, that the red area is just the study area. Right-of-way limits would be less. And
that's correct. That's correct. Yes. Yeah. I showed that as
longitudinally along the route. So I did want to make sure everyone did see that comment from Chris.
Yeah, that's an impact area. I'm sorry, I misspoke myself when I said that was a right-of-way limits. That's the impact area. The right-of-way limits have yet to be determined.
I have a question. And that is, when when this is redone, particularly the pedestrian bicycle pathways, will we take into better consideration the wheelchair individuals who now have a tremendous travel from the time that they get off the bus? Right now, they have to go way back and all the way around, and there really is not very much accommodation for those who are wheelchair bound. And I'm hoping that MNDOT will take that into more consideration as they're doing this, in coordination, obviously, with IU. We need to take care of our differently abled citizens. And that really was not done when this was designed originally. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I don't know if Chris, did you want to address anything at this time for that? Concerns on ADA, and specifically for wheelchairs?
I'll speak to the point that, we are designing this for different modes of transportation. ADA is certainly in our minds when we're designing this. So I think that would be a great comment that we can bring to our designers and look and see what we can do.
Yeah,
Thank you. Steve?
Yes, a couple of concerns. Number one, is it safe to assume that the project hasn't actually been designed yet, that what we're talking about is beginning the design process?
Our designer is working on the preliminary plans now. They hope to have them ready for public comment and involvement early part of next year.
Okay. Second question is, I thought that this project goes all the way to Pete Ellis Drive. Why is that not visible on this map? Why does it stop well before Pete Ellis Drive?
Because the Pete Ellis Drive was his own project. That was the one that was funded first, and its limits are the end limits here that's shown on this sheet. So the area they looked at for the project limits for Pete Ellis extend westward until this eastward point here on your map.
Okay. So, and that project's been designed already?
It's not complete in design yet either. No. It's in a fiscal year 23 letting, I believe.
Can you see why we might be concerned about the design of this project in the context of that one?
Yes, we purposely put the same design firm on all three of these projects, so we would have we'd gain efficiencies and not lose anything in coordination between these three. And currently we still have the third project, which is Pete Ellis to Russell, I think, is it? And that is still, that's a bench project, and that's in the same year as this one we're currently looking at. So hopefully, if the money materializes, we could do both of those at the same time, and we wouldn't have three separate discrete projects.
Okay. My final question.
The way we get funded, sometimes it's easier to fund things in pieces than one big, large lump.
Okay, understood. Final question is, I see that the side path on the north side of 45 blends with it becomes hard on the car travel lanes by the time you get to the intersection. Does MNDOT's designer intend to make sure that there is greater separation of that side path as it goes around the corner and north? I see that there's room for it. Is that a concern of MNDOT's?
Yeah, they are planning to put a grass strip between the pavement, the travel lane, and the multi-use path. That's
with a curb.
With a curb, yes, correct.
So that there's some, because I know MNDOT doesn't like putting trees in those plots. That would provide further separation, further security for people using the side path. But if MNDOT's making some effort to, is there a certain minimum standard of distance between the side path and the car travel lane that you all maintain?
there are times when we have to put it just right next to the travel lane, just the back of curb. We try not to do that if we've got the space. So in this case, it looks like we probably have the space, and we would try to maintain some distance there.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Steve. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I do have a question for Chris, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but do you know if NDOT's planning on using any federal funds on this? Because as I mentioned earlier, if NDOT wants to do it, they're going to do it. But if we have anything to say about it,
our intent is to use
federal funds.
Our intent is to use federal funds whenever we can. So yes.
But you don't know yet at this point. It's
and sometimes we go determined. Sometimes we plan on federal funds, and then it might just, the way that our budget analysts look up at Indianapolis, it's not always 80-20, put it that way. So
right.
But most of the time we plan on utilizing federal funds.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I do want to say I received a text from Kate, and she lost service on the road, and she apologizes for that. We can now open this up to the public. I believe there is a typically 5-minute limit on public comment. And Mr. Ferris has his hand up. Muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, Scott Ferris. Some of you might remember that I was the one who made the presentation to the EO 2 years ago about the need to create or to correct the safety concerns that we have along 10th Street. Spent quite a bit of time, a lot of discussion, resulted in you all coming up with requirements, which resulted in 3 projects being identified for 10th Street. Now, one thing I have to ask you, can I talk about the IU briefing here, or do I have to wait till the public comment later on? Or can I talk about that and also this project? That's a question.
Technically, this is only about this amendment at hand.
All right, then I'll just talk about this. There are 3 projects along 10th Street. It is clear to me after listening to you all that you folks do not have. I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Pat, did you say something? Okay, can you hear me still?
We can hear you.
Okay, somebody interrupted me so I stopped. There are 3 projects along 10th Street. They're in different phases down at NDOT. It's clear to me that you all do not have, I say again, do not have a good understanding of what's going on with respect to not only 10th Street, but the entire area there with respect to the traffic study. I have some prepared comments, some of which are going to be repetitive on things that have been mentioned in the past, and I'll go through them. I should take and introduce a little bit here. I worked in government for almost 30 years. I was in Washington, D.C. I worked the interagency process. I even ran a plans division at one point in my career. And so I am a planner at heart. What I've been able to find out with respect to this project is nothing more than a phone call away to NDOT Seymour and talking to the communications director, in which I get an update every 6 months from her on what's going on with these 3 projects, including the one we're talking about here. This is not a difficult process. It's just that somebody's got to do it. In my opinion, it should be the MPO staff who does it. It's a phone call. You're making it much harder than what it needs to be. So here's my prepared comments, and I've given these comments to Lisa so she can put them in a record, and I recommend you do that so they can be addressed. I said, with respect to the State Road 45 bypass to Pete Ellis Drive, Discovery Parkway, State Road 45, and the 10th Street intersection, this project's planning activities should be synchronized with the other two projects along the State Road 45 10th Street from the bypass to Russell Road corridor. You cannot take and do them independent of one another because they're all linked together. Please note that there are choke points along this heavily traveled 2-lane country road. As a result, the rerouting of traffic when you do these projects will be extremely difficult. Some areas along this corridor only have one way in and one way out. So the idea of doing them sequentially instead of synchronizing them doesn't make much sense. You're going to take a 2 to 3 year project and extend it out past 5, 6, 7. If not properly planned, folks will use whatever side streets are available to avoid traffic jam. Anybody who's been in the Washington, D.C. area like I was knows that everybody had to carry around street maps so you know what side streets to take when in fact everything was jammed up. The same thing is going to happen in the neighborhoods out here along 10th Street. And you will see neighborhood complaints increasing to the max because of the traffic flow of people using these side streets. Please know that there are areas along this heavily populated, heavily traveled area that do not have sidewalks or bike paths. But yet we still have people who walk along there, ride their bikes along there, take their scooters along there. We've even seen baby carriages with moms pushing them along there. These are extreme safety discussions. And it is a primary safety concern. Lastly, what's important along this stretch, for many of you folks who live in this area, we have apartment complex after apartment complex after apartment complex, which means we have IU students everywhere. We have IU buses and city buses, which serve those students to get them to campus so they can get to their scheduled class times. We also have an elementary school down the road, which in fact has school-age kids going to that have to get to the school at scheduled times. And when you, I'm sorry?
That is 5 minutes.
Is that it?
Thank you for your comment. Yes.
I had 3 words to say. Thank you.
Does anyone else wish to provide a public comment at this time?
Thank you, Scott. Any other public comment?
None that I see.
Excuse me, what are we doing here?
I'd like to call the question. I don't know if we've lost our chairwoman.
Our chair is not in. Is there a vice chair? Is there a
Yes,
second?
It's Sarah,
that
yeah.
would be this one.
Very good.
Are you,
I don't know
So-
that we need to call the question, Sarah. I think we can just vote.
well, I didn't know if we lost our chairwoman, and that's who I was addressing. So could you please call the roll and let's vote on this thing?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I think after public comment, there should be an opportunity for debate or discussion before a vote.
okay. Is there any
I have no
further
objection.
discussion?
That is correct, yes.
Is there any further discussion? Anyone?
No, I don't have discussion, but I would like to have the motion read again before we vote.
Can you read it back, or do you want me to go ahead and reiterate it? What would you like?
Yes, please, Sarah, can you reiterate your motion?
Yeah, hold on, let me go back up to the agenda. So I had moved that that the policy committee approves the added travel lane on State Route 45 from the 45-46 bypass to Pete Ellis Drive in our 2020-2024 tip. If there are no
Okay, we have a
further
motion. Do we have a
discussion,
second?
we had a second.
Okay. Sorry, I lost connection. I apologize.
That's okay. We, this motion was a long time ago and it was seconded. So if there is no further discussion, could we please call the roll?
Before I call the roll, just making sure that there's no further discussion on this motion. Okay. Samples,
Yes.
McDaniel,
Yes.
Clements,
With thanks to Colonel Ferris, yes.
Volan,
Abstain.
Wiltz. Oh, did she rejoin us?
She has not.
Okay. Seaboard,
Yes.
Bannock,
Yes.
Githens, Githens,
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, but only because it'll give us federal funding. I don't like the delayed timeline.
Ridge,
Yes.
Ryder Band,
Yes.
it looks like we have 801.
Thank you, Ryan.
Just making sure I didn't miss anyone, did I?
You missed me, Ryan.
I thought I missed someone.
Yeah.
Wallman,
Yes.
sorry. That is 901. My apologies.
Thank you, Ryan. Moving to new business and seeing none. And then do we have any public comment on matters that's not included on the agenda? And Mr. Ferris?
So I would like to talk about the IU health briefing. Can I do that? Is that a
Certainly.
yes? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay. So this is an outdated, incomplete traffic study. That complex out there is affiliated with Indiana University. There's an Indiana University building out there. With respect to the traffic study, specific questions I have, and you should have as well. None of this stuff is a secret. It's been out there for some time, and the fact that it's not being discussed is concerning. Point one, why did the traffic study only focus on State Road 4546 bypass 14th Street intersection and not the Pete Ellis Drive, Discovery Parkway, State Road 45 10th Street intersection? Both are access points to the IU hospital. In addition, why wasn't the traffic study updated to include the impact of the City of Bloomington recently approved 941 bedroom apartment complex along Pete Ellis Drive? All of this is going to do is cause more traffic flow to that area. Next point, why wasn't the traffic study updated to include the impact of the 3 MNDOT State Road 45 10th Street projects, which I just talked about previously, and the Smith Road State Road 45 3rd Street intersection project that's relevant when I talk about ambulances. These projects are on road rate. All these projects are loaded on roadways included in the EMS train response plan #1 in the IU briefing. This is a specific route for the ambulances. The fact that you all didn't even bring that up in your discussions is amazing to me. Next point. Why wasn't the traffic study updated to include the impact of MNDOT reducing the State Road 46 3rd Street from 4 lanes to 2 lanes along the EMS train response #1 route? specifically addressing the increased traffic flow generated by the 2 new apartment complexes recently approved by the city of Bloomington along this traffic corridor. These apartment complexes, as you well know, equate to an additional 1,142 bedrooms, which means potentially 1,142 cars in this highly densified living area. If you go back to the IU brief and you look at the slide that says train response plan number 1, I don't know if you can do that or not. It shows the route that the ambulance will take when the train tracks are occupied, or the railroad tracks are occupied along the bypass from 45, 46. And the fact that they have to go down 3rd Street, down to Smith Road, and then back up to 10th Street, all the way back up to Pete Ellis Drive and Discovery Parkway. You cannot take and disregard that ambulance route and the routes they're going to take, and it needs to be part of that traffic study. When they take and tear up 10th Street or 3rd Street at the intersection of 3rd and Smith, that's going to impact whether or not those ambulances can actually travel down those roads. I don't know if you've been out there lately, but it's bumper to bumper traffic. And that's all I have really with respect to the IU health briefings. It's out of date. It needs to be updated. I have 2 recommendations, both of which I think you've talked about. One, the MPO chair, policy committee chair, needs to direct an area-wide combined traffic study that talks about this entire area. You cannot do it piecemeal. You can't do it one project at a time because one thing impacts the other. And the other thing is that you should absolutely identify a centralized government body to deconflict all the area-wide traffic and safety infrastructure requirements. I suggest that be the MPO staff. Like I said previously, I make a phone call once every 6 months and get an update on all these projects, and they send me an update, and I send it out to all sorts of people, and to include all the people out here who live along Russell Road. And I send it to some of the elected officials as well. The last point here is that you all tried to do this in 2005 and 6, tried to do it in 2012. You had federal funding and the projects were canceled, and we don't want to do that again. We need to have a combined traffic study and centralized planning and a POC to take and who can manage these projects and keep the community informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferris. Margaret?
I would like to thank Colonel Ferris for all of the work that he's and expertise that he has put in on this project. I agree with him on all counts, and his recommendations are solid. And I would just say that they should be implemented as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. There any other comments from the board? Moving on, communications from committee members or matters not included on the agenda regarding communications or topics for future agendas.
Oh, excuse me. I was just trying to read the comments here. Yeah, I did want to say just a couple things briefly. Lou May has officially retired as the general manager of BM, of Bloomington Transit, excuse me. John Connell, who I mentioned at our last meeting, is taking over. I don't think he participated today. I talked to him about this. Lou had formerly been the chairperson of the TAC. John has put the TAC's next meeting on his agenda, and he's going to be happy to participate and will participate in our policy committee meetings in the future. But right now he's kind of got his hands full trying to figure out what's going on. We did successfully negotiate and complete a union contract for the next 4 years, and we're satisfied with it. So things are doing okay. And I hope you all get a chance. I know that Pat and Ryan already have met John, but I assume you'll all get to know him sometime in the near future. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent, and we look forward to all meeting John. And I guess as chair, I don't want to say that I take anything lightly that Mr. Ferris has emailed or stated. Being in the division of the highway department that I'm in, I do take traffic. I do take safety concerns very serious. Sometimes it's out of my control when it's along a state route or a city route, but it doesn't say that we all can't try to come together and work together to make it the best project for the people that are going to be traveling these roads on a daily basis. If it's something that I can do working closer with MPO staff at this point, I'm happy to do so. Open to suggestions on making things better, more informative. I don't know if any funds are available in our unified work plan for maybe different types of studies for upcoming projects that could be done. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out some ideas out there. But again, I'm not ignoring Mr. Ferris's comments. I think he's done a lot of homework and I appreciate it. And I think his concerns are valid. So with that said, if nobody else has anything, our upcoming meetings, technical advisory meeting is October 27th at 10 a.m. Citizens advisory meeting is October 27th at 6:30 p.m. And the policy committee will meet on November 5th at 1:30 p.m. And I would think maybe we'll be in contact maybe from Patrick if you talk to somebody from IU Health and moving
And
forward.
MNDOT for you. Yes, both.
And I move for adjournment.
I move to adjourn, and I just want to remind people that our meeting next month is a week earlier than usual because of the Thanksgiving holiday. If you didn't notice that on your agenda.
It's
Thank you.
actually because of the Veterans Day holiday.
It's Veterans Day.
No. Well, it's also because of Thanksgiving, because we move the CAC and TAC up a week because of Thanksgiving. So we also have to move policy committee meeting up. So.
Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. And
Thank
I think
you
we
all.
can adjourn.
Thank you.
Yeah.